so the Park Commission meeting of October 8th is called at 9:35. We'll begin with roll call.
Laurie Mills.
Sandra Farrell.
Mary Elizabeth Cofer.
Colleen Preheim.
Okay, so public comments. I think we had Marina. Were you signed up?
I did, just if you wanted me to address or share anything that's not on the agenda for the official.
I think we're good. I'm not sure.
Sandra, I know that Catherine emailed a kind of a report, and several of the items that she emailed about this morning are not on the agenda.
Okay.
And she asked that we share that with the
Okay.
commission, so maybe this is the proper time to
Okay.
give this report.
Okay.
She says irrigation, they are fixing the items that the commission, well, basically that were budgeted, and are supposed to be sending a bid for the areas to fix. She's gonna follow up today with those bids. It's my Park Day Scout Troop is looking for 10 volunteers. She sent the request to the high
Scout
school.
Troop is looking for 10 volunteers.
That's what she says. Scout Troop is looking for 10 volunteers for us.
So they're gonna find 10 volunteers for It's Your Park Day. The Scouts
Okay.
are going to give us 10 volunteers. They're looking for them to give to us.
Okay.
Okay.
And how many do we need, I think is what she asked.
Well, we probably need, if we had 15 to 20, 15 people, that would be plenty. Because we have 14 cubic yards coming.
Okay, I'll just let y'all respond to her then
Okay.
in the email. Then she has a fence bid.
I thought we approved the fence last time.
You did make a recommendation on the fence, so I'm not sure.
Was it the second bid that she was waiting for?
I'm not sure. It's not attached, and it
She
just
sent a
says.
separate email with the fence bids.
Who is it from? That might
Oh,
clarify.
Discount
Fence.
fence, but she makes
Yeah.
a note about something with Viking. The Little League uses Viking, so she wanted to use Viking for something and then discount for the stuff that we needed done. But that was in a separate email, I thought.
Okay.
Let me see if I have it.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess
She wants to use Viking for the installation of the gates because that's who the Little League uses, and then use discount for the repairs and the work. Viking wouldn't even give us a bid for the stuff that that discount did.
So right now, it's on the council agenda because of a recommendation that the commission made to go with Viking for the bid that was on the last commission agenda. So if this is something we want to change, I think maybe Catherine could write up, or someone could write up a report that this is what you would recommend to the council. Even though that was the formal recommendation of the commission, you could say, well, in the meantime, we got another bid. But I think we just need to just remember that you all are making a formal recommendation, and if things change, you need to be cognizant that the formal recommendation is on the table, and you have to account for that. Does that make sense? Okay.
So if she wants to use any of this, we have to put it in the thing this week, in the packet this week
Correct.
for city council.
Right. Wednesday.
I'm a little on this 1 and 11, doesn't that read the same to you? Unless it's
I
in
haven't
a
had a
different
chance to
area.
look at
I mean, this
these.
is 2,400, but that reads the same. Some of the others don't, but.
So if you all you two, because I know she's talked to you two, and that won't violate Open Meetings Act. So if you two wanted to get with Catherine and write a report or submit something that we could give to council, that would be great.
Just to clarify before we move on, we did vote on the gates going into the ball fields, not the repairs, correct? The vote that we took pertained specifically just to those big, large
To the
gates that go
gates?
into the ball field,
Right,
correct?
so she wants Viking to take care of those, cause that's what the Little League uses, and those are their primary fields.
And we
was my
already-
understanding. We can look back at
We
the
already
minutes
voted
to
on that
see
last time?
exactly what, yes, we
Okay,
did vote on
alright.
that last time, we're just gonna double check exactly what that wording was.
And so I think then number 4, she's got some lease ideas, which there is an item on the agenda to talk about the lease. So I think we can wait until that agenda item is pulled up to talk about those items.
This one says August 6th.
Let me pull up this
Right.
meeting.
Pet favor.
So do we have minutes from that meeting that we did last Tuesday? I see the
This is-
September 9th ones in here.
I didn't see the ones from last
No,
Tuesday.
No, we posted the agenda before then,
Yeah, so we don't have.
So they're not in this packet yet, they'll be in the next one.
Okay.
I can find them though, I'll look for it and see.
Okay. Was that it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. And the consent agenda, all consent agenda. I didn't know exactly what was gonna be on there, or if there's anything on there.
Looks like it's just the minutes. From September 9th.
Sandra, if you wanna, does everybody, if we go back to the public comments, does everybody understand the new agenda management system that we have in place and how to access it and what the page numbers mean? And I
I might help to
I
go
could take
over it.
everybody through a little tutorial. So when Ashley sends out, she's just sending out the link to the website. It's just, if the link doesn't work for you, I know sometimes our system has a hard time communicating with Apple products, but if you just go directly to the website, you go to agendas and minutes. There's something right on the front page that takes you there. You scroll through, you find the meeting date. There's an agenda and an agenda packet. If you click on the agenda packet, each item is numbered and then it's highlighted. And so if you click on the highlighted number, it will bring you to the
Take you to that
supporting
page.
documentation. Correct. In this particular packet, it's got the item number in the upper left, and it looks like the page number on the upper right.
I think it's
Switched.
wait, I moved the wrong one.
Oh, vice
Page
versa. I'm
numbers
sorry.
on
The
upper
item
left.
number on the upper right, and then the page number on the upper left. And then if you're on the website, there is a bookmark thing up here. If you click top, it'll take you right back to the agenda, so you can scroll back through. And if you would like come in, we'd be happy to take you through it
Okay,
and show you how it works.
okay. Okay, so we've got discussion and possible action to approve the minutes from the September 9th meeting. And did everybody get a chance to read those? or-
I read them. I didn't find any corrections needed to be taken.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay,
I make a move that we approve the minutes.
So you'd be the second.
Oh, I second.
Yeah.
Okay, I second that.
all in favor?
I
Aye.
Regular agenda, discussion and possible action on a recommendation to the city council regarding commercial use permit fees and professional dog walkers as a required permit holder.
When did this come up? I didn't,
This was something that Catherine had come up with because when she, I guess she saw a dog walker with, 6 dogs on leashes, and it's just a way for people that are using our park as a business to be permitted or to, pay a fee.
The same way they do for people who do exercise classes here.
they're permitted also?
They're permitted,
Yes.
or
Okay.
like at the pool when they do swim lessons there, the pool takes a percentage of the swim lessons for using their
Well,
facility.
this makes sense. I read over it carefully.
Yeah,
It's not unreasonable.
no.
It's definitely not unreasonable, but there's challenges. So, I mean, I attended the meeting, and I think the issue is there's definitely a difference between dog walkers or people up at the park with their dog, and people being down here using it for exercising, because the exercising goes on at a certain time pretty much every day, so it'd be easier to monitor, where the dogs is all through the day. And so the burden on city and staff and trying to figure out how are they really going to monitor that is going to be a challenge, honestly. So that's just something to kind of think of when you're thinking about doing it.
I'm sorry, and who are you?
I'm Buck Shapiro, I'm one of the council members.
Okay, sorry, I should have known that, but I didn't. So you're saying when we have professional dog walkers?
Correct. And I know because I see them because they walk by my house.
Okay,
on
and you're
Wallace.
saying that they're not,
They're
I'm
not
sorry.
registered. I think the concern is basically making people in the neighborhood distinguishing between who's providing a service. What if somebody is up there and they have their neighbor's dog? Are they for the weekend?
Correct.
Is that professional services? Is it not?
Right, it's
And
too
then
hard to differentiate
really
and
hard-
too hard to.
It's going to be really hard to monitor.
continually
So how are we going
monitor.
to monitor it moving forward?
well,
Especially considering it's throughout the entire day usually. It's like from 7 to 7, where people working out here
Is
is
it a
in the
certain
morning
time?
at a certain time, so it's easier to monitor that. Or at the pool, that's a completely different story because they have to come through a gate to get in there.
Well-
But I'm not against it. I'm just saying you gotta kind of think about
Think
all
about
Think
those
how
through
they
all
go
the
into it.
nuances of.
Think about how all that interplays. No, because I'm all for however we can collect more income for the city.
Marina,
Do you want me to go to the podium?
however you.
Okay. I,
Yeah, Marina, if you could,
okay.
just because the recording doesn't capture it and we are live.
Marina Breland, 2808 Rollingwood Drive. I recently rolled off the Park Commission but with everything going on, I offered to provide for all the new members either some continuity or background information or support through
Thank
the
you.
end of the year. So not trying to be a busybody, but if I can be of help, I'd like to. I think what we've seen lately, and I'm a dog person, so I'm up here walking every day, is I totally agree with Buck. This will be a challenge. But I also think it's a good discussion point because I think of recent, we've become a destination not only for community people with their dogs, but dog walkers. I've seen on a couple occasions two vans pull up, back into spots, and 2 dog walkers bringing out, each one had like 5 on each arm. So we're talking like 18 to 20 dogs. And they go to the pet station and roll out the bags like this. That's not everybody, but I do think we're becoming a destination for dog walkers, especially when things like Zilker Park are closed down for events. So there are challenges. It would be difficult to monitor, but perhaps if we need to come up with a policy, are we trying to discourage dog walkers? Or
And
are we
Marina, if I could
inviting
just
the,
If I could just add to, the ordinance was provided for commercial use of the park facilities, and I believe it does cover professional dog walkers. It says no person shall use the park facility or park property for commercial use without first obtaining a permit, therefore issued by the city. But again, the problem is who's gonna report that to the
Monitoring
city?
it,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, obviously it's happening today.
But
We're happy to issue those.
yeah, the other issue is insurance, liability insurance, which we require for the fitness groups to have. Would we require insurance from the dog walkers? On the one hand, you'd say, well, that's kind of crazy. How could they afford that? But on the other hand, if there were an incident, a dog bite, somebody injured on park grounds, would the city be responsible? Would the city be liable? Possibly.
Well, we're looking into the mixed use, the shared use of kids and all of that. Charlie's looking into that right now.
The health and safety.
I've
Health
already
and
looked into that.
safety, well, there are other issues too with regard to like small dogs and big dogs interacting. You know, what kind of liabilities are posed there. So the city attorney's gonna fully vet that for us and give us a report.
Well,
But-
maybe this could be tied in with that conversation. Would this
Absolutely.
be a way to monitor, you know, well, and to, yeah, we don't want the police or administration to have to be up there all day long monitoring. But if somebody did go to the trouble and expense to register and get a permit, is that maybe they can have, you know, hanging around their neck. When they come to the park with their dogs, they put it on their neck and we see that they are, that they have a permit and they are registered. I think it's certainly appropriate to ask them to cover their costs for maintenance of our park if they're bringing multiple dogs. And maybe the way we could identify really professional dog walkers is by a minimum number of dogs, 4 or more dogs, 5, whatever that might be, just like we do with the fitness groups. We identify how often they're up here. It could be a pay scale based upon, how many dogs, that kind of thing.
I would
That's how
probably look into seeing what other cities do, other small municipalities, if they have a similar ordinance on this or how they handle it, because usually I find it's better to seek out what other people are doing and what works and doesn't work as
Start from
opposed
scratch.
to we're trying to like reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
On it.
I would say also consider what we have to offer. You can compare us to, say, Luling or somewhere, and do they have the bags out there? Do they have everything that we have, the fenced off areas? Do they have everything we had? You'd have to compare apples to apples. Secondly, speaking to as whether they can afford the insurance, I have a friend that he used to be one of the main waiters at Jeffrey's. He's now walking dogs. He told me he made $4,100 last month. They can, if they're really walking that many dogs, they can afford the insurance. Third, as far as people walking their dogs, if we're going to ask people that are coming there as residents of Rollingwood to take care of their dogs and their dogs litter and so forth, I certainly think that we can expect non-residents that are coming here that are making money off this to abide by the same rules. Our residents are paying taxes. I expect other people to carry their share of the load.
And I think this would
And
be a good conversation to tie in with the other reviews of the mixed-use field.
And I think when it comes to enforcement, no, we can't afford to catch all of them, but for the same matter, we don't expect that we're going to catch everybody that's not abiding by some of these other ordinances. But you know what? If we do nothing, we have done nothing. We have to start somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm not for or against it. I'm just saying I think we need to look at all aspects of it and
I agree.
look at other municipalities and see how they do it. I'm 100% in agreement. I don't like other people from outside the community coming in and using our facilities and not having any sort of responsibility towards our facilities.
Right. I want them to share the responsibility.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I agree.
Because the burden is on us as taxpayers in this room that live in the neighborhood. I just want to make sure that we think the whole process through and how
I
it's
agree.
actually going to work.
So maybe the city attorney, when they check out, the nuances of this, they can give us some advice. And I do like your idea of a visible identification that they have been permitted if we decide to go that route.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think it applies to them today. Just they're not coming into City Hall to get a commercial park permit. So how, you know,
Well,
if
we haven't, like, I think it's covered too in that ordinance, the way it's written. But we haven't ever, we don't have a sign that says that. I mean, I hate to litter up our thing with so many signs, but
Well-
we don't have a sign that says dog walkers
Yeah.
need to be registered if you have 4 or more dogs or whatever.
Well, maybe you could put them on notice though by a small sign on the dog stations that says, you know, professional dog walkers must register at City Hall.
Yeah.
And leave it at that, you know, to get them in the
another
door.
policy question is whether, and I don't know if we can restrict this, but do we want to restrict professional dog walkers? Do we really want them on the fields? I don't.
Personally,
Something we could explore.
I mean,
Charlie.
yeah, here, I'll let you go.
well, personally, I would say no to what I saw, I've seen on a couple occasions. We're talking 20 dogs at one time. And I stayed longer because I thought surely they're not going to take them into the off-leash area, but sure enough, they did.
It's just not big enough.
It's frightening, quite frankly, on several levels. And if them having to get a permit discourages them, then maybe that is the way to go.
There's also liability with all the different kinds of dogs, sizes of dogs, everything else. It just opens up a bigger can of worms.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I think you were right when you talked about restricting the number of dogs, because I think what you're both talking about is, can we really handle, do we want that many dogs there? And I don't think that our park is large enough for that.
Right.
It's not Silker Park.
Right. Well, I think, not to open another can of worms, but to take this discussion a little further is, do we want a dedicated off-leash dog park up there? I really think that puts us on the map as a designation place for not just dog walkers, but for people outside the community.
And that will get written up in newspapers and other places, and word will travel. I don't think it's an issue of having space for 20 dogs or 30 dogs. I think it's an issue of having an owner to dog ratio where the owner is able to,
Right.
you know, be
But
watching your
watch
dog.
and care for
Yeah.
that dog.
You know, I wouldn't
I-
bring 20
I-
kids to a playground, and I probably wouldn't bring 20 dogs to a dog
Yeah.
park either,
Yeah.
because there's just
I-
only so much human
I
capacity
have
for
to
supervision.
disagree with you there. I think 20 dogs landing at one time is way too much. And for the
They
reasons you
can't
brought
control
up.
them.
Yeah,
They can't
Well, you're
supervise
saying
that many.
space.
I'm
Yes.
saying space too.
Space.
Oh, okay.
Space too. It's a big area, but not for, that's just inviting.
It overtakes the.
It's just
The
inviting.
residents still want to use the park. They
Yeah.
can't leave just because
Right.
someone outsider brought in 20 dogs.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I think.
I wonder how many of those dogs are residents' dogs?
That's
Well,
the other thing,
that's
is
a
that
good
they've got
question.
clients.
And I'm
So,
sure there's.
Are we gonna, I don't know, more public hearing, like comments on it
You
somehow,
know,
get people
well-
that have dogs, that have dog walkers, let them come in and say what their thoughts are?
Sure.
I'm kind of thinking maybe we are at that point that we need to have some of these people speaking up, because,
Yeah.
you know, we're on the verge. I mean, it seems to me, I've only been to a few meetings. I'm new to this, which is why I didn't know who you were, sorry.
Yeah, you're
But,
fine.
you know, we're kind of talking about possibly not having a dog park. And
No,
there's- and-
no.
Okay,
no,
not a
no,
dedicated,
no.
it's not a
Not-
dedicated
not
off leash.
spending
But my
money
point
on a-
is that I don't need it. But a lot of people do that live here. And they count on it. And Pat,
Nobody's wanting to get rid of the dog
of the
access
off
in the
leash.
park.
The
Yeah,
off
yeah,
leash.
That's
Oh, I
not
thought that
enough.
was just mentioned. Do we
No.
need to
I'm-
not have it
I'm talking
dedicated?
about constructing a new area
About
that
having-
is
Oh,
So
the
there's
new.
a-
totally dedicated
Oh,
at all
oh,
times
right.
to off-leash.
Oh, you mean a dedicated just for that?
Yes.
Yeah,
So the city
because-
attorney right now is looking into whether or not we can even have a multi-use field at all. And if we can't, then what are our alternatives on having like a dedicated area? So that's why that was originally brought up, was in case we find out from our city attorney and our insurance that if there was an incident to happen up there, whether or not we would be covered. And if we're not covered, then we just have to like cease everything until we can figure out an alternative. So that was the whole idea behind doing is that designated dog
All right,
park.
very good, I
But
understand,
that's,
thank
but
you.
that's really for the neighbors. That's not really meant for
Professional.
like,
External use.
yeah, for commercial use. So that's like a whole nother issue in my mind.
Ooh.
That's separate.
Well,
I think y'all feel the same way.
but we are a public park, and so
Yeah.
they are, as of now, they're allowed to come, but
Correct.
they have to follow the rules, which if that means have a commercial use permit, then they need to be abiding by that. So at least we can be addressing that now until we have
Yeah.
answers. I didn't realize this whole topic was the attorney was.
Well, it was the
reviewing.
reason, I mean,
That's good.
that was part of the reason that City of Boston did what they did on Town Lake and created a designated spot, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Because they have all kinds of issues.
Gotcha.
Can we, related to this, can we have the city attorney look into whether it's legal or allowable for us to limit dog walkers from the park, you know,
Period.
period?
Yeah.
Like they can
I don't
walk
know.
on the streets, but they can't use the park facility? Or if you have over a certain number of dogs with you, they can't be in the off-leash? You know, you have to have a certain number of humans.
Yeah.
There has to be
Per
a dog
dog.
to person ratio.
Human
Yeah.
ratio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's something, I can't imagine there's not something on that.
So that would be great if the city attorney
Right.
could tell us if there's some
Sure.
sort of dog to a person
I
or
would
something.
think
sure
that there's
there's
case law
something.
on this,
Yeah.
honestly.
Right.
Just because
Square
you hear there's so many
footage.
dog incidences.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like what
Yes.
I'm hearing is we're really concerned about, maybe more concerned about the off-leash area use by dog walkers, using the bags, using the off-leash, and not being able to, maybe more than we are about walking on the streets on leash, not near other
No.
dogs.
I don't think we're
or not
even
near-
talking about
Streets,
that.
no,
We're just talking about the park.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
the trail and
The
the park.
reality is
the
if you
trail.
limit it at the park, you're probably gonna limit the dog walking on the streets, right? Because that's where they're
Yeah.
going, they're getting on the streets. I mean, that's not to say that they just won't walk the neighborhood. I mean, I know they use my front yard as a restroom stop, because I have it all on camera.
I
mean,
think
that's
they're
a-
walking residents' dogs though too, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, so that's another thing
Yeah.
to consider is how many of those dogs are residents' dogs.
Well, to be honest, if there was one of my dogs in there, I would not like how these dogs are being handled and
Yeah.
treated. And I wonder if they know. I don't know. My guess is for them to make money, it's volume, you know, so the more dogs you have, the better. And so they save the dogs in this area for their last pickup and then come here to the park with everybody that they have, all the dogs that they have. That's my guess. So, anyway, it's some big food for thought, yeah, so.
Well, I think we
Thank you, Ranch.
need to,
We need to-
talk about this some more and not take any action on it today, and
We may need a smaller committee to work on this. It sounds like a bigger.
job.
That would be fine. What I can do is pose the question to the city attorney as to whether we can restrict commercial use by the dog walkers, just so we know the answer to that. And then also, I know that the other piece of this discussion was whether you wanted to look at raising the fees for the commercial permit holders. So I believe it's
I would like to look at that.
Okay, it's on the agenda today, so you could consider making a recommendation to the council. I believe it's $250 a year.
It's kind of a formula, which was
Okay.
really kind of devised with fitness groups in mind.
Right.
I think it's $25 per year per trainer, up to 3 trainers per company, per
Okay.
group. And then, so Ignite, who is the only permit holder right now, ends up paying about $200 a year.
Okay.
It's very reasonable, and this was rewritten in 2017, or recalculated, and it's significantly less than City of Austin Parks and Rec.
we know what they charge?
Yes, I sent you that summary.
Oh,
We don't really offer, it's not apples to apples,
No,
so we can't really look at,
no.
I mean, we can, but then
Well,
we need to
well,
scale it.
So it's actually,
The pavilion is a nice facility to
if,
use.
yeah, these
It's
fees are
awfully
kind
If we
of,
had
small
more
for
than
this.
one vendor wanting to use them, we'd be in trouble.
That's true.
So we don't have the capacity.
That is
that-
And it's
the city
awfully
has.
small for exercise. I mean, you can't get very many people under there for exercise.
it's
Well, we don't
$180 for continuous use for the calendar year, plus $25 per year for each trainer on site. That's on our website under rules and regulation for commercial use of park and park facilities.
So if a dog walker wanted to use our facilities, would they be charged $180 right now?
That's how I would interpret that, yes, if someone came in to,
Okay.
and it does say that they need to carry a photo ID, copy of the permit at all times when they're using the facilities.
And just off the top of your head, does that sound like it would cover the cost of the bags, the cleanup,
Well,
the wear and tear?
for the last couple of years, we've spent between $2,000 and $2,500 on bags, right? And the station pieces, when they need to be replaced, are expensive. And if this would become an ongoing thing, we may consider putting in additional way stations, maybe.
What we have right now are working really well. They're at perfect locations.
So if you all wanted to take this under advisement, put it on your next agenda, think about it, maybe do, like Lori said, maybe a couple of you work together and do some research on what other cities charge or how that looks, and I'll explore the legal question with Charlie, and we can have it on the next agenda.
Is it necessary to have the same fee structure for different types of users? Meaning a dog walker is different than a exercise company?
I don't think we wanna make it harder than it needs to be. I think
Okay.
we need it to be across the board, but what are your thoughts?
And then is it required
well, I
that it all
think
be the same?
the exercise has a lot of people that are, and they're making some money.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
expensive.
you know, and it's regularly, I don't know if it's 3 times a week or twice a week.
It's 3 to 4 depending on the time of the year.
So, I mean, that's a lot of usage.
I wonder how many people in those classes are residents?
There are, I think there are a lot, I think so.
Not the
I wouldn't
majority.
say
You don't
Yeah,
think so?
I think
Not
that's
the
stuff we
majority.
have to
I
do.
know I've seen residents.
Yes,
that
the
are
residents
too
do
long.
use it for sure,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't
Yeah.
say it's the majority
It's
of
not
each
the
class.
majority.
Okay,
I'd say
well-
maybe a third to a quarter of the class.
Okay. And how many usually in a class, you know?
It changes every day.
Yeah.
But on the average, a dozen,
A dozen,
yeah.
a dozen to 15 probably, and I think 15 is the stated maximum.
Okay.
I don't know if we answered your question.
It's not required that
Okay,
you would
not
have.
required to have the same.
Yeah,
I
you
fee
could have
don't
structure.
believe
different
so.
fees.
Yeah, especially considering different impact, you know.
And,
what's-
yeah, I mean, the exercise classes make a lot more than the dog.
Well,
walkers.
there's a lot of, I mean, they're consistently, you know,
Yeah.
whereas the dog walker might be once a week. I don't know
But it
how
may
often
cost
the
us
dog
more to
walker
have the
do.
dog walkers because of the waste
And
and
the wear and tear
bags
on the
and
part.
Yeah.
part wear and tear.
Well,
So
I
I don't
think
know.
it's worth a discussion or to look into, to decide.
And just one more comment is, again, I was really rattled by these 2 vans that pulled up and came out with all these dogs. And it was difficult for them to control them and to get down the trails. And if you think about how close the trails are to the upper playgrounds with kids there, I think that's a safety issue.
I watched a guy that had 2 dogs on a leash recently. One of his dogs attacked a dog that happened to be off leash. the other dog that was off leash, it was a temporary thing. The guy had taken him off the leash for something, I'm not sure what, and the dog off leash ran up to the dog that was on leash. But the problem is the dog that was on leash, he couldn't get him to let go of that other dog. And I just, and they both live here, but he couldn't get that dog to let go. And it was right by the trail, and I just kept thinking, what if that was a child? It just freaked me out. And it just kept going on, and he wouldn't let go of that dog. So I just, you know, people need to be able to control their dogs. So the idea of somebody having multiple dogs, that just frightens me.
I think that ratio, we need to find out if that's somewhere.
Yeah, I really
You know,
think we need to have a decent, a controllable
I
ratio.
think Charlie's exploring that exact scenario because that's what he's talking
Look,
about.
I think the reality is we are so close to downtown Austin, and that's really probably a lot of people that come
Yep,
over here
from
and
the
use our
condos.
park, because our neighborhood, our lots are big, you don't really have to go to the park to let your dogs run. Most people can let their dogs run in their yard, front or backyard. But I think, and I'm not saying, because I'm okay with dogs up at the park and all that stuff, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, I think we need to keep in mind as we go through this, that as downtown Austin becomes more and more dense, and you have people that are living in urbanization and high rises and don't have yards, they're all seeking somewhere to take their dogs. And their two closest dog parks are gonna be Zilker and Rollingwood. And most people are gonna probably wanna come over here because there's parking and it's
Peaceful.
quiet and it's peaceful and it's just a different environment. If they, once they find it, it's like kind of a hidden gem.
But it's different for them to bring the dog here than to send it on a leash with
Yeah.
6 other dogs and a dog walker.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, just in general, I think
We need to
the
expect it.
discussions now are good to have, because I think it's only gonna get worse over
I
time.
think you're
I don't think it's
absolutely
gonna get
right.
better.
Okay. Do we wanna have a few people volunteer to work on this, or,
I'll work on it.
I can work on it.
Marina, I know you're bowing out, but do you feel like being, or Bud, do either one of y'all feel like,
Marina needs to work on it, she is really, really good.
oh, Bud,
And
look
she's
at
got all the
you.
history and everything
She
else,
is
so we're gonna just put
awesome.
you on a subcommittee.
yeah.
I will.
I cannot get on any more subcommittees, my wife will kill me.
And well, I guess I can't.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
well, no, we can use one more, because she's not on
Is
the
that on
commission.
I know, but we only have 6 people on
She'll
the
be
commission.
proud.
Just to clarify, we are looking exclusively at usage, or are we looking at permitting and fees? I just wanna
Yeah, let's
understand the
clarify.
scope of what we're
All of the above.
Considering.
Yeah, I
I mean,
think all
it's
of
everything
it.
that has to do with the dog park and how do we make it.
Okay.
Oh, are we gonna wait and see what the city attorney
Well,
comes
I think
back
that
with?
will come into it, but you don't need to wait. I think you can talk about,
Some of these are separate, some of them interplay, so I just go ahead and start looking into it, and then hopefully we'll have something from the city attorney in the next few weeks.
Yeah,
on
I just
all
don't,
the other stuff.
I kind of work too, and I just don't want to reinvent the wheel. If we're trying to figure out what the laws are or what the rules are somewhere else, I'd like to know what the city attorney is doing.
Well,
Okay.
So the city attorney is really fundamentally looking at mixed use versus dedicated dog park, right? I mean, that's question number one that they're trying to
Well,
establish.
they're trying to establish whether or not we can even have a multi-use field at all.
Yes,
Yeah.
so,
Whether or not that can proceed moving forward or not.
but we could
And
still
how that
wanna,
interplays with our insurance, because that's another issue too.
so we're not gonna look at that as the subcommittee. What we're talking about is, I'm just trying to define scope.
Yeah.
So what we're gonna talk about is professional dog walkers, permits, permit fees, and just maybe ratios of dog owners to dogs. That's what we're
I would
trying
probably
to address.
maybe try to reach out to the Austin Parks Foundation
Uh-huh.
and ask them, because I know they're right now, the City of Austin and Austin Parks Foundation, or City of Austin is wanting to turn over their parks to a third party to manage all of it, because it's just too much. I know they do a really good job on Town Lake and the trail and all that stuff and all the improvements they've made. And I know they had a part in doing the shores. So I gotta think that they would have all this information already.
So
right?
we're mostly interested then in the fees for the permits. We're interested in the dog and walker ratios.
Yeah,
What else, you guys? What are we missing here?
just how do other cities handle it?
How did,
Right.
okay,
How do
perfect.
they just, how do
Colin-
they deal with it?
And the
Colin Walsh is
attorney
a friend of
mentioned
mine.
that
He's
New
the executive
Braunfels
director.
does it well,
Right.
and you might reach out to them as well.
Heidi Anderson
Yeah.
is
Good memory.
She's also a friend of mine.
New Braunfels does it well, and they're more closer to our city than Austin is, so you
Okay.
may reach out to them and see how they handle it. And I don't know how many parks they have, but
Okay,
we only
great.
have one,
So
so
who all's on the committee?
Colleen,
Colleen,
Mary
Mary
Elizabeth,
Elizabeth,
and you.
Okay. We can visit afterwards to split.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, so, the next item, discussion and possible action on a recommendation to the city council on the agreement with plant-driven design for the butterfly garden project.
Do y'all wanna, okay, so I met with Scott Ogden and we walked the trail and looked at the, proposed areas for the butterfly gardens. And, he talked about the fact that it was good that we hadn't done anything yet because for a number of reasons, it was a harsh summer. But we also talked about the fact that the sprinklers were down and all that, and he said, quite honestly, that he doesn't suggest that we have, necessarily a sprinkler head or whatever at each spot, because he says what happens when you water with city waters, you get a buildup of lime, and once you get enough of that, your plants won't flower. He said, when you get this buildup of lime, it will take a heavy, heavy downpour to wash the lime out. So, and my husband is the executive director of the Hill Country Conservancy, and they have butterfly gardens there. And their butterfly gardens at the trailheads, they completely died this year. And the reason is they have no water nearby. What the butterflies need is water nearby. Scott and I did not discuss that, but I know that's a fact, is that water needs to be nearby, not necessarily on the plants. So what Scott has told me is that the plants that they have proposed are ones that should, most of them should be able to live through a pretty harsh summer. And if they get some water, they should do okay. Maybe not all of them will survive, but he's the one that he and his wife, I think, did this out here in front. So I don't know if these are on a sprinkler system or not.
They are,
They are?
but they're not. They're supposed to be a water-wise garden that survives without water, but we have drip irrigation out there.
Okay. So anyway, so we walked this, and he said that they picked out the plants for these butterfly gardens, and they're listed in the agreement, and they're ready to go when we are. He talked about a check. I don't know whatever y'all's agreements are. I read the agreement.
I
It
read
says
the
that he's to
agreement.
be paid after the fact.
I
Okay.
had a question on this, on the Exhibit A. Is this the list that he's doing? Because it says that we requested milkweed, and milkweed is supposed to be poisonous, I think, so I don't think we want that in our garden.
Well, I think there's a lot of plants out there that are poisonous. I
In
think it's
this
only if you
list, or
consume them.
that is already there?
Don't they need milkweed to?
I think,
For the-
I think
Well, he
milkweed is.
didn't have it in his list, so
Yeah,
I
why
didn't
did we
know.
ask for it?
So we asked for it, and if we don't really need it, I don't know that we
I don't
wanna
think,
have
I
it.
don't think it's that kind of poisonous. I think it's a consumption thing. I think there's quite a number of plants that we have out there that are poisonous if you consume them.
So where is he saying he would put that real quick? Because before there wasn't a good spot for it, now there is.
I did
Well-
not discuss the milkweed with him.
I don't know, all we have here, we don't have a list of where he's adding it, and it's just on a note. That's why I wanted to know if this was the
Well, I thought
That's
the
the problem.
purpose of the meeting with Scott was to determine where we could put it where they would survive, where it would have the best chance of.
Oh, I didn't know that
thriving.
y'all wanted to go beyond those areas. We only looked at those 5 areas. I did not
But
Well,
realize.
I think these are the 5 areas we talked about doing.
And
Correct.
he was okay with all of this? He
Yes.
thought it would work?
Yes.
Yesterday I talked to Tony and she said, and Marina, you might remember some of this, that, Vincent Landscapes didn't think it was viable, but that 3 or 4 other companies did think it was viable and he was one of them. So, you know.
Wasn't there discussion about concern that it was so close to the road in a couple of locations
Catherine
that the
brought that
butterflies
up
would be
last
getting
time.
hit?
Catherine brought that up, but I think that, I'm not sure. I thought that there was some discussion that it was gonna be all right too,
Okay.
but I don't know. My memory is
Marina,
not the
may I?
best. Uh-huh.
Yes, Tony put together a summary of the proposals for the Butterfly Garden, Cleanscapes, Vincent Landscapes, Cynthia Bond, and Ogden. Everyone made a bid, but I think Vincent Landscapes' comments were, I think of importance. And I forwarded this to you, but I think it's worth reading. It says, one of their points was, safety concerns since milkweed, one of the main monarch plants, is toxic to humans and could present a risk to small children coming in contact with it. So I do think we should study that. Ongoing maintenance required they were concerned about the ongoing maintenance to make sure it was a successful project. And they also said it's better to set up specialty gardens like this in enclosed spaces where you can control all of the items listed above. Irrigation, protection from deer, perhaps toxicity. It says, I don't believe these types of gardens in median street areas, and he was talking about on Rollingwood Drive, those beds there, will be effective long term, since monarchs require an abundant amount of egg-laying plants and nectar flowers for energy. Constant flowers will be key, and unless we can control all of the items above, abundant flowers will not be possible. So, and he says we always strive to create successful projects that will succeed over many years. In this case, we are uncertain if this could be a successful project due to the site conditions. So, you know, I think these are some very good points. I mean, and if we are successful in flowering along Rollingwood Drive, we don't want the monarchs to come and then end up on grills of cars driving by, you know, at 25 to 30 miles an hour. I think we need to rethink the areas for that this could be successful and long-term success. So, you know, I think this project is more complicated than maybe we originally thought. So I think it's good that we're reviewing this again before we spend $6,000 to $8,000 on it.
How much?
It was,
I think
6.
8,000 was approved, but his bid came in at 6. 5160.
Do y'all really think it's realistic that we're gonna find a place that we're gonna, I mean, we can't like put this in a terrarium somewhere.
No, but I was wondering when you said that if the lower park would be the area to
That's
have
what I
it.
thought that we were doing. I thought we were looking for alternative places outside of Rollingwood Drive, like other than
Further
Rollingwood
back.
Drive. That's what I thought we were doing.
When Public Works and I walked with Cleanscapes looking at a new multi-use area in the back, Catherine was with us too. And so we had said, well, you know, while we're walking this, let us know if you think any of these areas would be conducive for butterfly garden areas. And he had said, you can do pockets of this around, it doesn't have, it doesn't have to be just one area, you could do pockets. And he thought some of the beds towards the back behind the fields along the trail could be possible locations, but long-term, what's the plan for their long-term? We don't know, so I don't know if we want to invest in planting back there until we, it's kind of a domino thing.
So I would suggest maybe we table this project. This is my feeling on it, is that to spend that amount of money now doesn't seem like a great idea when we have some really big moving pieces going on at the park, in particular the mixed use field versus a dog thing, and in the upper park, and then it feels like we don't have a really clear path forward on some of the really large areas, and it just doesn't seem like it makes sense to invest the money now in that. And I'm not opposed to the project, like, in general, it just doesn't feel like now is a good time to invest that money.
And I agree with you, Colleen. My impression was when I came on in August was that this money was already earmarked for this, and this
Yeah.
is what we have to do with it. Is
I
that
think
the case?
that's what I
Okay.
understood,
And
that
my-
this was
But is
back
that the
from
case?
when Tom was mayor. I think it got approved.
Well, there definitely is a mayor's monarch pledge that Tom was instrumental in, and there, it's not saying you couldn't continue to do this project if you get some other things figured out. It's not been budgeted for in this fiscal year, so we'd have to go back and make sure we have the funding to do it. There is an
So
outstanding.
tabling is
So
okay.
tabling it would be okay.
Um,
Or-
do you wish to continue with this contract? I guess that's the question. Do you want to make a recommendation to council to terminate the contract while you sort these things out? Or do you want to just continue with this contract and continue to speak with Scott and work things out? That's the question before you today.
I would also say one more thing when we consider about tabling this. We need to think about what is the best time of year to even plant these things. Is it the fall? Is it the spring? Because it certainly isn't the summer. So if we're not going to do it now, then we need to think about how long are we going to table this and when are we going to take it up so that we do it at the opportune time. Also, I'm wondering, and again, I'm new to this, does Scott Ogden have this group's confidence? Doesn't kind of sound like it.
No, I think he's had, I think we've been happy with
Okay.
some of the work that he's done.
Okay.
But I think the question is, do we feel comfortable with the areas
The
he
areas that
selected?
he's-
Because that's the whole conversation we keep coming back to every meeting. is,
Well,
are
I
these
didn't know.
areas the right areas to do it if we're gonna invest that money?
I went to these areas. I did not know y'all wanted me to investigate other areas. So, I was the one that approached this wrong last time, possibly not him. So, I can reschedule it with him and talk about other areas. I could
Mary
talk to
Elizabeth,
Marina.
I think you've raised a very good question, and I don't know that I can specifically answer it. Maybe Amber can help. When we were reviewing contracts with Cleanscape and stuff, correct me if I'm wrong, Amber, but he's difficult to work with, right? He doesn't show up on a scheduled time. He doesn't check in. Oftentimes he comes on the weekends. And for years, I think that worked. But as the city has put in policies and procedures, he doesn't conform to your typical landscape company.
Accurate.
Okay. And so for that reason, it was becoming very difficult to work with him. And in fact, the contract for this was
Terminated.
terminated with him out here. So I think you've raised a very good question. And do we want to does the city want to take up business with him again? And for example, this contract, he was scheduled to start work in the spring. For personal reasons, he couldn't, and it just drug on, but in hindsight, it was probably a good thing so that there was time to review this whole project. But
Well, and my concern is, if y'all are saying this isn't feasible, and he's going, sure, let's do this, then I kinda don't have confidence based on that. If y'all are saying, based on your research, this isn't likely to work.
I'm just trying to provide continuity and background
And
information.
I'm
is
really
what I'm
so appreciative
what
of that,
I'm
Marina, I need that.
sharing. Because I mean, Cleanscapes, who I think has been doing an amazing job up here, they were ready to start work too. So
Cleanscapes is using Roundup or something up at the park too, so I kinda have a trust issue with them.
when
It's
They're
all,
not supposed to
whoever,
be.
someone's using it around the fences up at the ballpark, around those rocks up there, or God somehow is coming around and putting in a completely grass-free zone along the fence over there towards the swimming pool, and a grass-free zone around those big stones over there.
Well, Cleanscapes most definitely knows that there's city ordinance prohibiting Roundup. So I would certainly hope that is not Cleanscapes, but could it be somebody that the ballparks are
The
employing
ball
or the
fields.
pool?
Are they
We-
employing somebody besides Cleanscapes?
The ball field does, who do they
Well,
use?
they have
ABC?
ABC does their mowing.
We
Maybe
put them on
perhaps-
notice that, we don't allow,
Okay.
you just said it, Roundup. Yes,
Roundup.
we don't allow
Yeah.
Roundup in the park anymore.
And I mean, we've talked about, the Park Commission has visited with Cleanscapes about that
They're
because
pulling weeds.
it has been a game changer for them, where
Mhm.
they had a guy with a backpack on with spraying Roundup. They now have 3 or 4 gentlemen by hand weeding
Yeah.
the front.
Okay, so maybe
I
it's
would
whoever
think-
the ballpark is using then.
Or
Might
maybe
be.
it's just from prior use.
Or
and
it could
hasn't
be.
grown.
There's nobody
It
using
could be a volunteer, dad up there helping groom the fields for fall ball and it doesn't know.
Yeah, could be.
So you think this is recent?
No, once it's done, it lasts for months.
Well, that's what I was saying, is it was probably from prior.
Well, I would say it was definitely done in 2019. And I would say, if I had to guess, I would say spring of this year.
Okay.
Because I noticed when it was first became aware that it was redone, that it was kind of freshened up.
Okay, so the question at hand is, what do we want to do about the butterfly garden? Do we want to continue with this contract with Ogden? Isn't that what we're voting on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll vote to terminate and table it, not terminate permanently, but
Terminate
press
this
pause.
contract and table the butterfly garden. Is that what I'm hearing?
Temporarily tabled until,
Do you wanna table or terminate the contract?
vote to terminate the contract, but
And
not
table
terminate the
project.
idea.
Uh-huh.
That's just where I'm coming from. I just don't think that it seems like a prudent financial investment at this moment.
I'll second
Okay, all in favor? Okay,
Do y'all mind jumping to 6 and 7, because I
okay.
need to leave, I gotta go back to the office.
6 is discussion and possible action on a recommendation of the city council regarding a process for request for proposals for the operation, maintenance, and ground lease of the city of Rollingwood athletic facilities.
Does the park commission have an official, recommendation that they would like to make to the city council regarding the request for proposals? Are you all, do you have thoughts about the current RFP? Did you want to make edits to that? Or do you want to recommend that the council consider that as the draft going forward? Do you want to make a recommendation about where it's advertised? anything in the process that you would like to see, this is your opportunity to make a recommendation to the city council.
Catherine's our lead person on that, and she's not here.
I would,
I thought that, we came up with some dates at the last city council meeting of, how long we had to work on it before we recommended to the city.
well, those public hearings happened.
Oh, I know they
Oh,
have.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm
I think
just
they're
saying-
wanting to issue
I'm
the
just saying
RFP
at the
this month,
last.
right?
Correct. City
Yeah.
councils, whatever direction y'all have, they're,
Do you
Morning.
want it by this next meeting?
yes.
Okay. All right.
From the public hearings, did you get insight into where the public is expecting to see it?
The issue, I think, in the public is there's just really just so much misinformation surrounding the whole thing that I think people just need to be open to the idea of different ideas, whatever those ideas might be. I don't know, I'm open to everything. Just because the real issue is just funding. And I think if people would take a step back and like take kind of the emotion out of it, and figure out kind of what we had in our meeting with the attorney last week, and that there's only so many ways to fund the park. And we should encourage anybody to make a proposal. Doesn't mean we're agreeing to that proposal
Right.
and vet it, but
One of the things I thought that we heard was that some residents were upset that it wasn't posted in the Picayune.
You know, and I researched that. I didn't remember offhand, but it actually was. It was advertised in the
Okay.
Austin American Statesman and advertised in the Picayune.
Okay, good.
And I
'Cause
didn't
think
wanna-
what I had heard was
And
anger that it was only on our website. So if we did it,
I heard that as well, and
Okay.
it was advertised. Robin attested to that it was advertised and certified it. So I just didn't remember
I
that.
just
I
wanna
had
make sure we
two.
can check that box and say
We can
we
check
put
that
it everywhere
box.
you
I
want
think
us
we
to.
should go ahead and advertise it this next time,
We-
just to keep that from being an
We
issue.
will, and I
Right,
think
that's what
I did it with the other RFP too. I had two RFPs going out at the same time, and I just didn't recall that I had it go to both
Yeah,
newspapers, but I did.
I'm saying the same thing you are, is let's just make that a non-issue. We'll just do it in the same places again.
Yep.
I know it's expensive but I think we have to do that to show.
yeah,
due
we want it to be.
Is there,
advertised
on the RFP that was posted, do you want us to work off of that with the new proposal?
That's totally up to you. That's
Yeah.
That's the
a
only way I
decision.
know to
That's
do
the
it.
only thing we have to go from.
Yeah, that's the only way I
That's a
know how
decision
to do
point,
it.
I think, on you. Do you want, as a park commission, to say, we want to work on this and edit this going forward? Are you good with that document? It's up to you. I
Okay.
also thought you might ask the council to create a formal subcommittee. And maybe it involves some residents, who would draft the RFP document together, then who would also develop a scoring matrix. Maybe it's the same, maybe it's different than what's in the RFP, but just develop a matrix. Then they would score all the proposals and then make a formal recommendation to you all and to
That's
the
after
city.
we receive proposals though, right?
Right, after you've
So
received.
that's after the fact. We gotta get the RFP out to even get proposals. And I know council feels pretty, I mean, if y'all don't make a suggestion between now and then, we're just gonna do an RFP.
Okay,
And
Right,
we'll
no,
work
I
on
think we
getting
want our
it this
input,
week.
is what's the
gotta
date you
get-
need it by.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would say
So-
at least 3 or 4 days before the meeting, so it gives everybody an opportunity
I
to
think
go
that's
look at
by
it.
this Thursday then, is that
Right.
right?
Right, and
Thursday or Friday
Next week.
of this week?
yes,
Of this week,
yes.
Yeah,
yeah,
sorry, I didn't
That's
realize
not
it was
very
next
long.
week, our council meeting.
yeah.
I've
Yeah.
been here every day for a council meeting. They're all-
I think
is
I
true.
thought we had more time than that since we pushed back the dates of I thought we pushed it back.
It's okay,
But
we'll
the
just
RFP
get it done,
really
it's
isn't
some
that-
one way or another.
Too much time and energy, I think, personally, is getting focused on the RFP. All that is for people to submit a proposal.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think it'll be fine. I
It's
think
really
we
gonna
can work
be,
with that. It's
once the proposal's
Okay.
coming in, going from there.
Yes, I agree.
alright, alright.
Yes, ma'am.
Did the council have some suggestions to it? I got the impression that the council had some edit suggestions for the RFP.
I didn't personally. and
Amy did.
Amy
Yeah.
did.
Do we have that written up
How
somewhere?
Yeah, it was included in your last week's packet. So if you go on the website, you click open the packet, you can see her edits included.
Okay,
If you need some help getting pointed in the right direction, just let
alright,
us
cause
know.
I thought I printed up what you had, but
I can print it right now.
And then, not to skip to number 7, but I don't really think you can have number 7 as an agenda item until you do the RFP,
right,
so.
And I think part of that agenda item too is just to make it clear, I don't know if this was clear to the commission, that if y'all wanna recommend eventually, extending the current lease, that's definitely on the table.
Yeah, well, I mean, we just
And-
have to get we have to get
Yeah.
the proposals back.
I thought that the reason why that was on there is that, when we were at that last council meeting, that we talked about extending the lease, or that was brought up, that they didn't think that the process
It,
Would be finished.
would be finished.
Completed.
You
You
know,
mean a short-term extension of the existing
we already
lease,
have one
not?
until the end of the year.
yeah,
Right, but we talked about at the last Tuesday's meeting, I think, extending it through the spring season, because we didn't know if the RFPs would be in.
Alright,
But I think it sounds like if y'all get the RFP posted this month, that a decision could,
a decision will go down
Possibly
by, yeah,
May?
it'll go down by the end of the
okay,
year.
okay.
alright.
We have to get it off of our plate, honestly. There's too many other
Well,
things for us to. we need to
It's
focus on.
good through December, so
Yeah.
maybe that's
They'll
not
be-
gonna be an issue then.
I don't think they'll have an issue with it.
Okay,
Okay.
alright, So-
Before we drop this, the required notice is in the 2 newspapers and on the website. Do we wanna do any other optional notice? Catherine and I were supposed to walk the signage in the park yesterday and she couldn't do it, so we're gonna probably do that later this week. There was some discussion about the dog, the off-leash park users, at the city council meeting felt like for whatever reason, they didn't feel like they really knew about, some of the decisions being made about the park or the RFP or things pertaining to the park. Do we wanna consider additional, areas, specifically the billboard down here, the one up at the field house, and then maybe another by the dog fountain? That's what Catherine and I were gonna discuss.
Well, the RFP is just a
Eventually.
request for proposals from future lessees, so I think really the time when people wanna know is what are the proposals? That's when people, cause the proposals are gonna go out to all the nonprofit organizations, so they
Sure.
already know, so like soccer, basically I-9, WEA,
Little League.
Little Leagues, all
Softball.
that, those are the ones that would be the lessee. So that, as far as the neighbors knowing, I mean, the neighbors know about it, I don't know how they wouldn't, it's been so publicized, and, I mean, you would have to be living under a rock in this neighborhood right now to not know what's going on at the park. To a certain
Believe it or
extent.
not, there's a lot of people that don't, because it's not on their radar and whatever. It's the select group that feels super strong about it that are the most vocal.
Yeah.
It's true.
That's not
I mean-
representative of the
We could
neighborhood.
send out a swift 911
Yeah,
as
we
soon
can
as
do
we
that.
post.
For the RFP.
Yeah, I could say,
But it really needs to
Post
be,
it on
once
the
we get the
website.
proposals back and that
Yeah,
goes to
I
city
agree. That's
council,
when they
that's
care.
when they need to
Yes,
come.
But I
absolutely.
think in this past one, what got people all upset was that they felt like it wasn't posted appropriately to get everybody involved. We know that's not the case, but that's the way, that was the perception that started all the rumblings.
Yeah,
So I guess I just maybe wanted to throw that out there that we consider notice and whether or not it's, you know, the perception or the reality, I do agree that
We're
there
happy
are
to
still
put-
folks out there
Yeah,
that
we'll
feel
put
like,
on the
hey, we didn't
flyer.
know.
We're happy. We'll do an email, a text. We'll do next door. We'll do website. We'll do posts on the bulletin. All the available bulletin boards. We'll put it up.
Okay, because I feel like even directing people to the website is just, you know, the best place to go for
Yes,
the full
that's
information.
that's what we'll do. Is just
Yeah.
direct everybody to the website. That's where they can see the proposal.
So here's something to keep in mind is I'm for all the public notice that we can give to everybody, but there are also a lot of other really important agenda items that are on our agenda right now that people come for these things and then they leave and they don't realize like we're trying to make really big decisions right now on drainage and all kinds of stuff. So it's like
You can't be selective in
how
what
are we
you
gonna
share.
be selecting
That's right.
what we're noticing people on the agenda,
I
other than
agree.
letting people know that there's the meetings on, you know, the certain days of the month and pinging them that way. At some point, as a resident, you have to take some sort of initiative
I totally agree.
to read the agenda. I mean, we can't, there's so many agenda items, and honestly, there's a lot of agenda items, which some people might argue are way more important than this. And so should we be doing that for those agenda items? I
And
don't
that's
know.
a
You
that's
can't
just
do
a-
it for everything other than to direct people to look at the agenda.
And
There's
I'm
an
all for
upcoming
it.
meeting.
God, I wish we could
Right.
publish the agenda
And
in
that's
the
a
water bill every month.
That's a good point, Buck,
Yeah.
because if we treat everything the same like
Right.
we've been doing, then we can't fall under any scrutiny that I can't ESP guess what you might find important. You know, just
Well,
like this.
And then the issue will be, well, you told me about the dog park, why didn't you tell me about the drainage? So
Right.
you have to be consistent and just point them where they need to go.
I mean, just for instance, like this council is like really taking it into consideration, making sure everybody is aware as much as possible as what's going on within reason. I mean, so I made a suggestion to all the commissions to not have meetings in the summers because I feel like that's when most people are gone. And I don't like decisions being made when people aren't here. So I think people feel snowballed during that time because they're traveling or they're doing whatever with their kids. And so we as a city, and I think most of the commissions,
They
if
did.
not all of them,
All of them.
adopted it that we're not going to have meetings in the summer anymore for the commission. City council will still meet, but it'll help with that process. So as the residents become a little more educated on this, you're really only checking like 8 agendas of the year, and it's during the school year. There has to be some sort of accountability. If you really are that passionate about it, you'll go find out. And if you're not, you don't really care, then
Yeah.
so be it. Then you
I
have-
wonder if in the water bill, something written to stay abreast, you know, and give them the website.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Go to the agendas
But a
in
lot of
minutes
people
and how
don't
to
get
pull
water
it
bills,
up.
it's all done electronically.
Yeah, I feel
Oh,
like
I
I'm
don't
trying
know.
to direct it to our park resources, and the park resources specifically that we have for notification, if they become known as places that you can physically see, and I know this adds more responsibility to the city, but specifically we have, you know, 2 big bulletin boards, and then I think the dog people would love to see a 3rd one right by the dog water fountain, and that's what Catherine and I were potentially going to explore. If those could become areas as well, where it's just like, you know, stick a big red
Communications.
paper in there, there's a new agenda on the website, here's the website address, you know, something like that, where that's an additional resource that we have within our purview in the park to provide, you know, just another touch point for
I think you would
notice.
reach a lot of people if you put it out there on the bulletin board at the park. I think you would reach a lot of people. And the interesting thing to me, Buck, the reason I'm sitting there smiling is because we've been having these same issues for years.
Oh,
You
Years.
what?
I remember these same issues. I remember when Tom was mayor and we had the task force and we were looking at everything from setbacks and all of this and tree ordinances, and we studied all these things and we were trying to present to the residents about all these things. A guy came in here with a sheet of paper in his hands, and I'm not going to say his name, and he comes in the door and he's waving this sheet of paper going, I haven't read this, but I'm against it. we've always had, we used to tell people we had drainage issues, and I'm talking 15 years ago at least, and they said, nope, don't. One of them was your neighbor. And he lived right by that dry creek that wasn't always dry. They said, we didn't have drainage issues. We have been trying to get people's issues, people's attention, and it's always been the same way. People, they just aren't gonna, I don't think it'll change.
Well, so it's
No,
not good
no, I
for the
agree. So I
community
think
to
we just
feel that
do as
way.
much as we can.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then it's on it's your initiative to do it or not
Yeah.
to do it.
But do we even wanna take on the well, I guess
Well, we gotta be
it's gonna
careful,
fall
I
on you,
mean, we
but
can't set ourselves up from going like door to door knocking on people's
No,
doors. So we
totally.
gotta be a little careful on how we do this.
I just
And
wonder,
I
maybe
don't know if we can pick and
in the
choose
mayor's,
what we're gonna tell people.
Yeah.
You can't.
Right?
I appreciate
I think-
that.
We
I
can't
think
pick and
it's all go
choose
to the
every
website.
issue.
Yeah, no,
I
I
mean, that's-
totally agree.
That's an issue, that's probably creates another issue.
Yeah.
If we start
I
doing,
agree.
if we start treating them separately,
I agree.
No, it needs to be
just uniform.
all the same. Here's what we're discussing. You,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
I
all
think the
adults.
SWIFT thing is
what are you
probably the
interested in?
best.
Figure it out.
Mm-hmm. We want to start, eventually we'll get there, but start doing a SWIFT, maybe every time we, a text message, every time an agenda is issued or something, you
It's a
know,
good
that
idea.
way
Yeah,
people can
but then you gotta,
be reminded.
but then it becomes like one of those things with your emails,
Then
if you
you
start
stop
getting too
looking
many
at
every
them.
month, you don't even look at them.
This is true, and we
It's
do have
like-
6 meetings
It's like,
a month.
where's the balance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you just,
Okay, okay.
Yes, but y'all make your recommendation by Thursday, I gotta go to the office.
okay,
Thank you.
yeah, and
You're
I'm
welcome.
only here
Thanks,
till
guys.
11:15, so
yeah, so we need, well, I think
And since
we
it's
just
a
need to
quorum,
discuss, I think,
I
5,
leave it's not.
discussion and possible action on a recommendation to the city council on trail repairs.
Do we have a plan for bringing in some more crushed granite? Cause, well, we got some areas over there by on the upper trail by the playscape that's really low.
we talked about that, didn't we?
Do we have a plan?
We've
for-
talked, I mean,
I can talk to Eli about
Yeah.
that. I don't know if y'all know, but Jackie Bob is retiring. His last day is Thursday, so it doesn't give us much time to find a replacement. We are working on that. I think this was on here. Catherine is asking for a bid to replace some of the stones along the trail. We'll see what that bid comes in, but I'll also talk to Eli about it. I know she's captured some pictures, so I'll see if maybe he's got some time to also possibly do that. So
I think the stones are there. They got dug up when they were doing the work on that tower thing. They just need to be dug and put into place. I thought about trying to get my husband to help me with it, but I can't do that. I can't dig anymore. But most of the stones, if not all of them, are there.
and we've got other stones. We've got replacement stones as well. So
Right.
we're good on material, the stone material. But I'll just check with them.
And I don't think it'll take a lot of crushed granite, but the areas that are low, the water's pooling there, and it's just so uneven.
Okay, I'll make a note.
And it's all close to where the stairs go down.
are you saying that we do have crushed granite we can use?
I don't know if we have crushed granite,
Yeah.
but
We
it's
have
something we
stones.
can bring in. We do have the stones.
And it wouldn't take that much crushed granite, it's such a short area.
I know there's some bags of sand up by the far entry to the off-leash area, 3, 4, and 5. I'm not sure if
Yeah.
those are designated for something, but it's sand, not crushed
Yeah, we
granite.
need crushed granite.
But to add to Mary Elizabeth's question about that trail, wasn't AT&T responsible for getting that area back in exactly the same condition it was before
Boy,
they
if
started
they were,
that
they did a
project?
terrible job.
Because
They
if
should
so,
have
that's
been.
the
They
area
should
we're
have.
discussing.
It probably is. I don't know how much work it will take to get AT&T
Yeah.
back in here to
Good
do
luck.
that. It's, by the time that happens, it's
We
probably.
could have it already figured
But
out.
my
Yeah.
follow-up to that too is, when is this heavy equipment from AT&T subcontractor gonna be removed? It's been up there since the spring, and with fall ball starting any day now, it's taking up 3 to 4 parking spaces.
Okay. We can, that's not on the agenda, but I will check. I can do something with AT&T. I will check into that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, snuck that in.
So along the line of the trail repairs, I just wanted to say that the mulch will be here, and those areas up there by the trail that are on our, we'll be able to get those mulched. So, I thought that we had, an agenda item on the, pet pavers, but I don't see it on here. Can we talk about pet pavers at all?
You cannot.
We cannot,
Um,
okay.
Well, I think next meeting we need to talk about pet pavers, it's my park day, there's a lot for.
Well, I don't think we have another
Oh,
meeting.
will happen
It
before.
won't happen before unless we call the special meeting. Basically, I think that we can, I mean, do we wanna call a special meeting just for that? Or do we need it?
Do you think we need it?
I don't need it on my end. I
Oh,
don't know
okay.
if she
Well-
needs it on her end because you're dealing with money and stuff.
Y'all think about it and then email us and let us know if you'd like to call a special meeting.
Okay.
Okay, I do feel like there's probably some input on certain decisions, that will need to be made prior to like fully rolling it out, collecting all the money and such.
Okay.
The last time I think they looked at placement and other things was like 2017, based on what Wendy Hunley sent me, so it's been a while.
Yeah. Okay, all reports are. Do you wanna go over the park financials, Amber?
Those aren't spoken to. If you have any questions after the meeting, I'm happy to answer those, or if you would like an agenda item, regarding the park financials, we can speak to that. So no action on 6 or 7 then? No official action? Okay, great. Just clarifying. Any questions about the financials?
Do you wanna adjourn the meeting?
I think we're ready.
There's no questions.
I have a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
I'll
Okay,
second.
So at, the meeting is adjourned at 10:55. Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank y'all.
Marina, I just wanted to tell you, I really appreciate your input.
No, we really appreciate your input.
We do. Agreed.
I was, so I was sorry that Tony was no longer with the with the group. When I came on, I was looking forward to her historical perspective and expertise. And so I'm really glad that you're here for giving your input as long as you are.
Thank you. Happy to archive. I don't know if it's sitting there by my seat.
So,
Well, I can come over here. So,
Take these back.
Sure.
okay, so I can talk to Colin Wallace. He's with the Austin Parks Foundation, or Heidi with the Trail Foundation, if y'all want, about what's going on here in Austin,
yeah,
or who to talk to.
sure.
Do you want to check with someone in New Braunfels or
You
St.
bet.
Marcus?
You bet. Yes, if you've got contacts, then you do those New Braunfels.
Let me
So we can go to St. Marcus.
Yeah, I think St. Marcus is the one that's going to be.
And I know Catherine is from the area in Houston, very similar Rollingwood. It's like a little city within a city, like West University and South Place.
Okay.
Very similar. So I will get with her.
That's a great idea.
Yes, because I mean the
It's a
setup
community of
is.
some resources, but it's
Yes.
enveloped by, yes.
And so
That's
they
gonna
have
be
love
the
it.
motion.
I think apples to apples. Yeah.
Yes.
So I'll ask Catherine about that.
I like that. And we're really looking at, do they have permit fees and what are they?
Right.
And do they have a ratio on dogs
Right.
versus,
Yeah.
and is that kind of it, you think?
I think so. Fees, permits, the dog walker ratio, yeah.
Okay.
Insurance, liability insurance, and any other requirements. Tags, do they have some type of tags or ID?
That's already necessary for us.
Yeah.
I said it's required visible photo ID. Now my friend, he retired with that for some of the money,
I just felt like you're saying that.
Johnny, the big blonde-haired guy.
I'm not looking for that, but it says
He had articles in the paper about him, he worked there for some. He retired, started walking dogs, and then they put an article in the paper about Zach, because he was so happy walking. I don't know why I didn't do this before. And the doctor told me to walk. So he started walking, then he started walking dogs.
I didn't know how much of this.
Clear, yeah, they can make money.
Just
Yeah.
garbage.
Well, this was obviously two gals, I mean, two new bands. It was a machine, and I was just